7150. Dark adaptation is impaired by exposure to A. Carbon dioxide. B. Vitamin A in the diet. C. Cabin pressure altitudes above 5,000 feet. The correct answer is C. Exposure to cabin pressure altitudes above 5,000 feet can impair dark adaptation, which is the process by which the eyes adjust to low-light conditions. As an aircraft ascends to higher altitudes, the cabin pressure decreases to match the external atmospheric pressure. This decrease in cabin pressure results in a reduction in the partial pressure of oxygen available to the body. Since oxygen plays a crucial role in the functioning of the retina, the decrease in oxygen levels can impact the efficiency of the cells responsible for low-light vision, particularly the rod cells. Rod cells are the photoreceptor cells in the retina that are most sensitive to dim light. They are responsible for providing visual information in low-light conditions. However, when exposed to cabin pressure altitudes above 5,000 feet, the reduced oxygen availability can impair the function of rod cells, leading to a slower and less effective dark adaptation process. The impairment of dark adaptation at higher altitudes can have implications for pilots, especially during nighttime operations or in situations with limited ambient light. It may take longer for their eyes to adjust to changes in lighting conditions, which can affect their ability to see and interpret visual cues accurately. To mitigate the effects of impaired dark adaptation, pilots can take certain measures. This includes utilizing cockpit lighting to provide adequate illumination, using night vision goggles when necessary, and allowing sufficient time for their eyes to adapt to changes in lighting conditions. Additionally, pilots should be aware of the potential limitations imposed by impaired dark adaptation and exercise caution and appropriate decision-making to ensure safe flight operations. In summary, exposure to cabin pressure altitudes above 5,000 feet can impair dark adaptation, impacting the eye's ability to adjust to low-light conditions. Pilots should be aware of this effect and employ strategies to optimize their vision during flight, especially in situations with limited ambient light. 7169. Although not required, supplemental oxygen is recommended for use when flying at night above A. 5,000 feet. B. 10,000 feet. C. 12,500 feet. The correct answer is A. Although not required, supplemental oxygen is recommended for use when flying at night above 5,000 feet. When flying at higher altitudes, the oxygen concentration in the atmosphere decreases, leading to a decrease in the availability of oxygen for the body. This can have implications for pilots, especially during nighttime operations when visual acuity and alertness are crucial. While there are no regulatory requirements for the use of supplemental oxygen at specific altitudes during night flights, it is recommended to use supplemental oxygen above 5,000 feet. This recommendation is based on the understanding that oxygen plays a vital role in maintaining optimal cognitive function, visual perception, and overall performance. At higher altitudes, the decreased oxygen levels can lead to hypoxia, which is the condition resulting from inadequate oxygen supply to body tissues. Hypoxia can cause various symptoms, including impaired judgment, decreased reaction time, reduced night vision, and diminished mental and physical performance. By using supplemental oxygen, pilots can help mitigate the effects of hypoxia and maintain optimal physiological and cognitive function. It is important to note that the specific altitude at which supplemental oxygen is recommended may vary based on individual factors such as age, health condition, and physiological adaptation to altitude. Therefore, it is advisable for pilots to consult aviation regulations, guidelines, and medical professionals to determine the most appropriate altitude for using supplemental oxygen during night flights. In summary, although not required, it is recommended to use supplemental oxygen when flying at night above 5,000 feet. This helps to maintain adequate oxygen supply to the body, mitigating the risk of hypoxia and supporting optimal cognitive function and performance during nighttime operations. 7165. What suggestion could you make to students who are experiencing motion sickness? A. Recommended taking medication to prevent motion sickness. B. Have the students lower their head, shut their eyes, and take deep breaths. C. Tell the students to avoid unnecessary head movement and to keep their eyes on a point outside the aircraft. The correct answer is C. To help students who are experiencing motion sickness, a suggestion is to advise them to avoid unnecessary head movement and to keep their eyes on a point outside the aircraft. Motion sickness, also known as air sickness, can occur when there is a sensory conflict between the visual system and the vestibular system, which senses balance and motion. This conflict can be exacerbated by excessive head movement and constantly shifting visual stimuli. By advising students to avoid unnecessary head movement, it helps reduce the sensory conflict and minimizes the potential for motion sickness. Encouraging them to keep their eyes focused on a point outside the aircraft, such as a fixed reference point on the horizon, helps provide a stable visual reference and can help alleviate the symptoms of motion sickness. In summary, when students experience motion sickness, it is suggested to advise them to avoid unnecessary head movement and to keep their eyes on a point outside the aircraft. This helps reduce sensory conflict and provides a stable visual reference, which can alleviate the symptoms of motion sickness. 7166. Motion sickness is caused by A. Continued stimulation of the tiny portion of the inner ear which controls sense of balance. B. An instability in the brain which affects balance and will generally overcome with experience. C. The movement of an aircraft causing the stomach to create an acid substance which causes the stomach lining to contract. The correct answer is A. Motion sickness is caused by continued stimulation of the tiny portion of the inner ear known as the vestibular system, which controls the sense of balance. The inner ear consists of fluid-filled canals and sensory receptors that detect changes in motion and orientation. These receptors send signals to the brain, allowing it to maintain a sense of balance and spatial awareness. When the body is subjected to various movements, such as those experienced during flying, the visual system and the vestibular system may provide conflicting information to the brain. For example, when flying in an aircraft, the visual cues may suggest that the body is stationary or moving in one direction, while the vestibular system senses the actual changes in motion and orientation. This sensory conflict between what the eyes see and what the inner ear perceives can disrupt the brain's ability to interpret balance accurately, leading to the symptoms of motion sickness. The specific symptoms of motion sickness can vary among individuals but commonly include nausea, dizziness, sweating, pallor, and a general feeling of discomfort. These symptoms typically subside when the conflicting sensory input is resolved, such as when the aircraft stabilizes or the person exits the moving vehicle. It's important to note that not everyone experiences motion sickness to the same degree, and susceptibility can vary based on factors such as individual sensitivity, previous exposure to motion, and the specific conditions of the motion, e.g., turbulence in an aircraft. Some people may be more prone to motion sickness than others. To alleviate the symptoms of motion sickness, various strategies can be employed, such as focusing on a fixed point in the distance, avoiding excessive head movement, maintaining proper ventilation, and engaging in deep breathing exercises. Additionally, medications and remedies, including over-the-counter or prescription anti-motion sickness drugs, wristbands, or natural remedies, may provide relief for some individuals. In summary, motion sickness is caused by continued stimulation of the inner ear's vestibular system, resulting in a sensory conflict between visual cues and the body's perception of motion and balance. Understanding the underlying mechanisms of motion sickness can help individuals take appropriate measures to prevent or manage its symptoms during activities that may induce motion sickness, such as flying. 7149. Which technique should a student be taught to scan for traffic to the right and left during straight-in, level flight? A. Continuous sweeping of the windshield from right to left. B. Concentrate on relative movement detected in the peripheral vision area. C. Systematically focus on different segments of the sky for short intervals. The correct answer is C. To effectively scan for traffic to the right and left during straight and level flight, a student should be taught to systematically focus on different segments of the sky for short intervals. The recommended technique is to divide the sky into smaller segments and systematically shift focus between these segments. This allows the pilot to cover a wider area and increases the chances of spotting other aircraft. Continuous sweeping of the windshield from right to left, as mentioned in option A, is not the recommended technique because it may result in overlooking certain areas of the sky and missing potential traffic. By systematically focusing on different segments of the sky for short intervals, the pilot ensures a thorough scan of the surrounding airspace. This scanning technique helps maintain situational awareness and enhances safety by reducing the risk of mid-air collisions. In summary, the recommended technique for scanning for traffic during straight and level flight is to systematically focus on different segments of the sky for short intervals. This approach allows for a comprehensive scan of the airspace and improves the pilot's ability to detect other aircraft in the vicinity.